Hello, everyone, and welcome to our second conversation taking place online as part of Tasweer's closing week. My name is Shaima Ayoub, and I am delighted to be joined by someone I've been massively fangirling over for the past year and a half, 2 years, Nina Hama. Nina Hama is a gallerist and the founder of Hama Gallery, which she founded in Amsterdam in 2020. Hi.
Hello.
How are you?
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for taking the time to join us this evening. I'm so psyched to be speaking to you. When I was asked to kind of put together a list of people that I wanted to talk to, I was like, I need to get Nina on because I've been following Hama Gallery since I think 2021.
Wow, I didn't even know that.
I came across Hama Gallery on Instagram, and I was like, I need to follow. And the thing that kind of comes to mind when I think of Hama Gallery is family affair.
Mm-hmm.
And you can kind of see it when you go through the pictures and you're looking at pictures of openings or opening nights, and it just oozes love, which is so amazing to see. And so like I really want us to talk about why you established Hama, but I also want to know the how, being in the industry and doing what you do as a woman of color. But before that, I kind of want to take it back a bit and to your childhood. So when I was doing my research, I saw that you said that as a kid, you wanted to be the director of the Stedelijk Museum. And I know that you mentioned how you spent a lot of time in galleries and the interest in art that you have now was kind of, I guess, by osmosis through your uncles. And so I really want to know what are some of the memories that kind of influenced your decision to open Hama, or to even say like, I want to be the director of the Stedelijk.
Yeah. Well, so I have two uncles which they're artists and I represent them now, so it's kind of full circle also in that spectrum. And one of them, Rashid, he lives here. So my other uncle used to live in London and now moved back to Kurdistan where we were born. But I, just because he was closer, I was a lot with my uncle Hoshar, who encouraged me to paint, to draw. He used to buy my first materials and I was always in his studio. So that's what I did, like growing up, a lot of painting, drawing. I definitely don't do that anymore now. I'm better at other things. But he always had exhibitions, especially in the Netherlands, and took me with him everywhere he went. And I was usually one of the only child in the galleries. So he would like sometimes give me a camera and say, okay, go and take photos of the opening. And well, yeah, I think that experience led to my interest in art, for one, because it's not like my whole family's into art. It's just a few people. So it's not that common, but yeah, because of him, he also took me to like festivals or museums, and his favorite museum was the Stedelijk Museum in Amsterdam, which is the museum for modern and contemporary art and design. And obviously, I would just copy him as a child. So that was also my favorite museum. But then growing up later, I was really fond of like street art, for example, things like that. I developed my own taste, but it stayed in like contemporary art and also design. So yeah, it was always fascinating to see gallerists or museum directors. But it was like a dream, but not something that could like really happen. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Yeah. So then growing up, I studied fashion, more like the business side of it. Graduated, didn't want to work in fashion. Then I didn't really know what to do, so I did like an international business and management studies. Just I was like, okay, I can work anywhere after this, for also obvious financial safety, and dropped out after 2 years because it was too much, like statistics, accounting, very theory based.
Yeah.
And, so then I was like around 25, and I thought, like, what am I going to do with my life? And didn't know, took a year off to think about it, and then came across this studies called cultural heritage, which is really museum based, also really the Netherlands based. And then I thought, I go to museums in my spare time, I visit galleries. If I can do that in my studies, like, perfect. But I didn't know it existed. That was actually the one thing, because it's the only museum studies here. It's like a small academy. So I started there, and I thought, okay, maybe I can intern at Stedelijk and find my way in that way. So I did my thesis and graduated while doing everything there at the Stedelijk, and stayed there as a freelancer for a while. And then in the office, especially like curators, directors, I didn't see representation of myself, or very little. And my representation was in like the security or the restaurant, like things like that, but not really higher up. And also in exhibitions in museums were very few about us, or like not even Kurdish, but all the countries around it. It was always from, if it was in a museum, then it was from perspective of trauma, war, refugees, like these poor refugees, without like not even naming these people. So I thought, okay, it was one day where I took my mom to the Stedelijk because it was an exhibition which I thought was about us. But it was very
Which exhibition was it?
I forgot. I have to look it up. But it was about refugees from our region. And it was all their stories, but it was all like trauma-filled stories, video installations of a few people. And then I took her there, and she walked out within like 10 minutes or something out of the exhibition into like the main presentation of the museum. So I left her for a bit, and then I asked her, didn't you like it? And she said, no, I've been through so much. Like, I just want to hear and see positive things, like happy things. This doesn't make me happy on my off day. And then I was like, oh my God, my own blind spot to take her here, thinking she would like it because it was about us. And then that really had me thinking to research where I could take her in the Netherlands for positive representation. And I couldn't find it. Like, mind you, this was about, I think, 6 years ago, this experience.
So really recent.
Yeah, quite recent. But even like 5 years ago, it was quite different than now. It was worse. And I couldn't find it. And I was like, wow, what a shame. And I work in this big museum. I want to like be part of a change, but also the hierarchy, there's a lot of people working there. So it's not like you can get something done like this. So then I thought, okay, the gallery was like a real dream, like childhood dream. Also like that, and becoming the director of a big museum, like Stedelijk. And then I was there, I was like, okay, maybe this is not the way I can spend the rest of my working life. And also create, like, I thought if I create a space myself, even though it's so much smaller than a big institution, maybe I can create more change. So that was then the only, the last option, so to say, to try it.
It's so interesting you mentioned. It's so interesting you mentioned space, because we just had a roundtable discussion, and we were talking about kind of physical space and creating change in a space. I'm really curious, what were the steps in opening Hama? What troubles did you face as a woman in this industry trying to establish a gallery? Because I mean, it is quite elitist. It is quite difficult to kind of, you know, get your foot in the door. What was that like?
It's still difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but because art stays like a luxury product, so it's not accessible to everyone. Like that's a lie. I can't make it accessible to everyone unless I give it to people, you know. But how was it like, especially being a young woman, and then a young Kurdish woman? It's like all these obstacles and people doubting or just like the mentality of prove yourself, like we need another gallery, because we have a lot of galleries in the Netherlands, especially in Amsterdam. There's like so many. But what I did was I did quite some research in galleries when I was traveling, but also in the Netherlands, and visited and asked myself, like, what do I like about entering this space? What makes me give like a warm feeling? Or how do people treat you when you step into a gallery? Why are people scared to do it, even though that it's free? Like for a museum, you buy a ticket, but for galleries, you can like walk in. You can have a free day just watching art, but people are scared to do that. Like, why is that? What makes me comfortable? What makes me uncomfortable? And then it was this whole list of things I liked and didn't like. Oh wait, are you going through the slides? Yeah.
No, I've just popped them up on the screen so you can kind of
yeah.
go through.
Sorry, I forgot we. Sorry.
No, it's fine. I just also want to remind the audience that we've got a chat box function. So if you have any questions for Nina, please pop them in the box, and we can get them to her at the end of the talk. So back to you, Nina.
Sorry, what was it? Yeah, so all the things that made me feel comfortable, and also the things that made me feel uncomfortable. I just wrote these things down, and I thought, okay, what would I like to add, like, to this scene? You want to be more accessible. Like, how do you do that? Especially it started with representation, right, of Kurdish artists. So the opening exhibition was with my two uncles. So the Kurdish representation came together there. And with that came like so many people that felt the same way, even though they weren't Kurdish. So it wasn't really about my background anymore, but just even women, like young women, just me being me, so to say. And there people being surprised that I'm the gallerist. And I just, people often ask me when I visit, it's like, what do you do here?
How shocked are they when you're like, I'm literally
quite. If they haven't read about like the gallery or haven't seen me online somewhere, then they're like, because we also have a bar, for example, to stay accessible and giving like a warm kind of a homely vibe. We have a bar where we have coffee and tea. It's free. My mom makes like Kurdish bites. We always like present that. It is also a place where people come together. There are two like chairs. People sit there often. But then when I'm making a coffee, like sometimes someone is like, "Oh, are you the barista here?" But I'm that too, you know. I'm proud being that too. Yeah. And then when you say it, like the owner is like, "Oh."
I think it's people have this idea of like, right, I've opened my gallery, even if it's a tiny room, they kind of expect you to have this like cool office and not to be behind the bar making tea or coffee for people.
Exactly.
So I guess
but I mean, but we appreciate a good coffee too, you know.
And always. There's
so
a couple of go ahead. No,
sorry.
No, I wanted to touch upon you mentioning kind of the accessibility of the space, because there are a couple of quotes that I really like. This on your Instagram where you say, it's not your average contemporary art gallery, and on your website it's like when art and people meet without boundaries. So I'm really interested in access and accessibility, and I see that with Hama you're actively creating this welcoming environment. You mentioned your mom making Kurdish bites, you behind the bar making tea or coffee. Can you talk to us a bit more about kind of creating this accessible space and how difficult it could be in an environment like Amsterdam, where you said there's multiple galleries? It's difficult as a woman, as a Kurdish woman, to be in that space. Are there challenges that you're facing to make the space accessible? Is there pushback?
Yeah, we're like, in terms of claiming space, like with like a physical space that I wanted to do, like to claim space back for us. We're also like based in one of the fancier areas of Amsterdam for a reason, because I don't see so many people like me even living here, or I wouldn't come here before. So taking like physical space in an area that is not per se for us yet. I would like to say yet. Yeah. So that's challenging, because people are like, well, that's such a posh area, I don't come there. But then I'm like, okay, come here, because now there's something for us here. And so yeah, we always say it's free, because a lot of people have no idea. So they call us like, what's the entrance? And then when I say it's free, they're like, oh wow, then how do you do it? Well, we sell art, and in museums it's like you buy a ticket but you don't buy art. Yeah, and then like price wise, I try to always have a few things that you can save for, and that is not per se like starting at 3, 4, 5K, for example. We also have that obviously, because I have to pay the bills, and I don't want to like this whole romantic idea of artists being poor somewhere in an apartment. I'm really not with that.
Unless like you're a dead artist, which is when they usually make money, right?
Yeah.
I actually did want to speak about buying art, and we're seeing more and more younger people buying art. What are you seeing as a gallery that sells art, as a gallerist that sells art, with this trend of younger people buying art now, especially younger people of color buying art, especially like in the context of Europe?
Yeah, absolutely. I see that, because our audience is quite young. Yeah, it's a mix. It's a mix between all ages, but we have a lot. Like my youngest client was like, when she bought an artwork, I think she was like 17 or 18. Wow. And she said like she wanted it to make a point to buy her first art piece with me, because of like me looking like her. So that was like, for me, the most amazing thing when that happened. And I think that's what the younger generation, like, they're so aware of where they spend their money, what they spend it on, who the owners are. So yeah, I think especially a lot of young women come to me and are like, oh, I want to buy my first art piece with you. And yeah, so there's definitely, I think, more awareness. And also buying, like, how I had this conversation with also quite a younger client, and she said, yeah, I do save up for like a very expensive bag, but why wouldn't I do that for an art piece, which
it's an investment
for the rest of my life, right? Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah,
that's so interesting. I want to kind of go back to accessibility for a second, and of space. And when I think of galleries and museums kind of, making, I guess, space accessible, we think of programming and we think of community outreach. What does community outreach or programming look like for Hama?
We always have like events in the gallery. The gallery is 3 floors, and the main, like the entrance floor, that's where we switch exhibitions like every 2 months. And then where I'm sitting now is my office, and there's a lot of stock here of all the artists we represent. So if someone comes now for an artist that is not showcased downstairs, then we can do like a private viewing upstairs. And then we have like a basement and a garden, which I rent out for events, like for business events, or but we also have like organized dinners, or we recently had an event during Women's History Month called the Female Gaze, where it was like all female, well, almost all female crowd, and talking about like ownership as a female, but also in artistry. There was an artist talk with two artists, and then this female-owned brand that she makes suits, for example. She was hosting moderated the talk. So I think with that, creating community and creating like a safe space, even for so many women to come together. Yeah. That is not just like exhibitions, opening 2 months, closing next. And there's always something to do, and almost all of our events are free, so that's also easier to join, so to say. And we have a garden.
I wanted to actually say up on the screen we've got this image, and I only knew recently that you have an artist in residence program. Would you call it a program?
Well, program. It's quite uncommon to have a garden in Amsterdam, so that's one.
Oh, really?
And we have a garden, or the gardens are really small. You can see in the picture, the neighbors like behind it. It's all like small balconies.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah. So I was like, if we have a garden, we got to make it like really special. So last Friday, for example, we had an opening, and it was the first time that the weather was like that good to open up the garden, and then you have this inside-outside vibe, which is really nice. And the artist in residence started a bit later, maybe I think about a year after we opened. And it came about, like, I wanted to do something there. But then I spoke to some artists, and they said, like, I really want to work big, or I want to experiment, but where do I leave my paintings after? I have the space to create, and it's not that big, but you can make quite some artworks there. And then I thought, like, that's crazy that you work on smaller scale just because you don't have the space, which is quite a big problem in Amsterdam, especially. So it just started from there, and the first artist, one of the artists I represented at the time, needed the space the most. So I just said, okay, if you want, you can use it. And it just started like that. It's not like a whole written out program, or it just started from like someone needing a space and me having a space. And now we have like the third artist in there. So it's really quite new. And it's just still from the people I represent, but maybe like we'll invite artists from outside the gallery. I don't know yet. It's also kind of a time thing, you know. You have this idea, and then it just happens organically. And now I'm thinking, okay, what can we do to also support like the artists, maybe financially or by materials? Because I'm not there yet. But it takes time.
And does it always result in an exhibition?
Sorry?
Does it always result in an exhibition?
Yes. Up until now, yes. Yeah. So, for example, the picture you're seeing, that's from, when was it? Late last year. And her name is Yara Janssen. And she had a group show in the beginning, a few exhibitions that we had. She was in one of them. And now she was working in an artist in residence on her solo exhibition, which opens after the summer, end of August. So a part of it is made here. It also depends on their time, and she's also now making more paintings at home. But if you're visiting the gallery and someone's in the residency working, you can see the process and then later come back to the gallery some months later and see the results. Yeah,
the fancy product.
Yeah.
I want to speak about the artists that you showcase and even represent. Because I mean, I think a lot of my introduction to artists based in the Netherlands. It's actually through you, through Hama Gallery. You've offered debut solo shows to a number of artists, actually, like Butterfingers. I'm also thinking of Miriam Slimani and Issa Perez, who we'll get to in a little bit when we speak about photography. But what is it that you're looking for when you represent an artist as an independent gallery?
Oh, what is it I look for? I really like artists that you don't always see on, like, because sometimes we have like, for example, these art fairs, and if you go like a couple years in a row, it's always like some certain names keep coming back. So I like artists in their beginning stages, but it doesn't always have to be. Like, for example, my uncles are not beginning artists, and that's also very interesting to work with. But mainly like artists who haven't had a solo show before, for example, or most of the time it's their first exhibition. And it's a mix of photography. I love photography, painting, ceramics, just anything really that catches my attention. There's no, like, I think it's like a feeling. Also, would you, for example, as a viewer, like, something speaks to you or not. Sometimes you can't even describe it. Yeah. And it's also then if you have a click with someone, because we're like super small team. It's not like I don't run a mega gallery. So you have to have like a real connection because you work very intensely together. And it's really, I always say it's a collaboration, and it's not what can I do for you? What can you do for me? It's like, what can we do for each other and grow together? So a mix of that. And for example, with Miriam Slimani that you just mentioned, that we're seeing on the slides, right?
Yeah.
Can you see? Yeah.
Yeah.
With her, like, we've known each other for quite a while. I think maybe when I was 16, 17. I'm 33 now, so it was way before I did this, way before she did her photography. And then once, and we always kind of kept in touch, like just online, and would like randomly run into each other. But then when I saw what she was doing, I really obviously loved what she was doing with her mother. And when she knew about me opening up the gallery, we had a call, and she said, "Yeah, sometimes people ask me if my work is for sale, but it's not yet. Who wants to buy my work? You know, all these doubts like most artists have."
Yeah.
And I said, "Well, I think there's like a very big audience for your work." And she said, "Well, if I'm going to sell it, then I want to do it through someone I trust and who looks like me." So I said, "Okay, bet, let's go." And then she had her solo exhibition with her mom. Yeah. So sometimes it's like organic like that.
Yeah.
And sometimes people like tell me, "Hey, maybe this is a nice fit, or do you know if this artist?" And if it comes up like a few times, usually, then I'm like, okay, if people already, or sometimes people even ask me, like, "Do you represent this and this artist?" And if I hear that like quite some time, usually I've already like been checking out that artist. But then I invite them, or I go to studio visits. And artists also email portfolios a lot.
I actually, before I kind of want to ask you about also the process of putting together a photography exhibition with like Miriam and like Issa Perez. But I was wondering if you could maybe, what advice would you give to like photographers here in Qatar, in the region, or who are, watching, when it comes to kind of, I guess, pitching your work to a gallery or emailing your work to a gallery, portfolios, etc. What advice would you give?
I would say keep it short, because sometimes we get like whole essays, and as you can imagine, we get like quite some requests. So I wish I had the time to read everything, but I just don't. So I think short and sweet, and especially with photography, the visuals should speak for itself quite a lot. and the text comes later. I think if it doesn't speak to you, the visuals don't speak to you, then a lot of text like doesn't add to it if it's online and you don't know the person yet. So I think like a good like PDF with like good quality photos of the work, short intro, that'll do. I think emailing is by far like the most professional way, because I also get like a lot of DMs, or even on my private Instagram, it's like
I was going to ask you, do you get people like sliding into your DMs, like literally check out my work?
Yeah, a lot, like
A
almost
lot.
daily. Yeah, and I mean, I barely use Instagram for private anymore because I'm on it so much for work. So yeah, but imagine like getting so many DMs and then yeah, taking time to respond to it. Like sometimes I also feel like it's a bit too much in my private space. If it's like on my private Instagram. Yeah.
So
And sometimes I just respond with, you can shoot us an email, and we always respond, like to every email we always respond. Yeah.
It actually brings up a really good point about kind of separating private, especially online. It's so difficult to kind of separate your kind of personal I guess space from kind of your work, especially since online is so important for a lot of businesses, especially art galleries these days, and kind of that separation. Do you like, I mean, I know you mentioned the struggle right now being DM'd, but how are you separating yourself from kind of from that bombardment, I guess?
Yeah, it's really difficult. Like I tried to deactivate my personal Instagram, you know, I did that for a while, but then it's also it also adds to like the growth of my business if I use my personal Instagram for it. So I just now see it as, okay, how can I use this in a manner that I can still use it privately, but also yeah, I don't know, it's always a thin line.
Yeah,
It's always a thin line. And I mean, we get so much from Instagram that it's also, I don't hate it, you know, and I get what people like DM, and I get it. You have to start somewhere, and it's it's an accessible starting point, maybe more accessible than emailing for some people. Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, we get so much out of Instagram that my love relationship is more love at this point.
Yeah. I guess it says a lot as well to like using Instagram as a business tool, especially for artists.
Especially for photographers. Like if you have
100%,
a really, really good Instagram profile, that's everything.
That is how I came across Mariam's work.
Yeah, see? Yeah.
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 I kind of want to talk about putting together a photography exhibition and how you found that process. Was Mariam Slimani's show the first photography show you had?
Yes.
And how was that process, and how does it differ from other exhibitions that you put
on? How is it different? This is my sister, by the way, in the photo, but behind her is our two images of Mariam's work. And let me see where.
Exhibition called Ummi, correct?
Ummi,
in Arabic,
my mother, yeah. How it was? I think because she had so many images, it was a lot to go through for her to maybe make the first selection. Because if you have like 1,000 images, like how do you create like a show? Because a show here is about like 20 works, something like that fits in the gallery. So I think that first selection is like kind of nerve-wracking, can be nerve-wracking for a photographer. And then so I think I asked like if she could make a first selection, and then we went through it, made like a second selection. You make like a lot of selection before you get to the final one. That was different. Because with paintings, it's like you go to an art studio, and some artists also have like, I don't know, 80 paintings around, but it's maybe not easier, but different. It's a different process. And then it's like the quality of the images, the frames that you choose, like the type of glass you use, like normal glass or art glass, things like that. You have to deal with like a framer who sometimes needs a month time, for example. And then also the market for photography is also so different, because it has like
I was just gonna ask, what is the market like for photography?
Well, here they always say photography is like a bit difficult to sell. I've had a very good experience with it up until now. But I get it, because people are like all these Instagram photographers, you know, we're all like amateur photographers, or we sometimes think we're like iPhone professionals, you know. And with like a painting, you can kind of see quality wise and feel like, okay, I really cannot make this myself. But with a lot of photos, people think they can do it, but it's also not really true. But
it's so democratized right now. Everyone has a phone with a camera on it.
So that makes it kind of, and also because it's an edition, and a painting, for example, is a 1 of 1. You have to explain that to people, like, why is it in an edition of, I don't know, 10, and why is the price like that? You have to explain a bit more, but I think it also has its own audience that really gets it. And also, like, I don't mind explaining it to people. That's what we're also here for. You don't have to have studied art history to talk about art.
For sure. And I think also kind of going through your pictures on Instagram of all these opening shows and seeing the variety of people that come into your gallery, the different ages as well, being interested in art, I guess it's, you know, it lends to the incredible work that you're doing in creating this accessible space.
Thank you. I wish you could come to one of the openings. Inshallah.
Oh my God, I wish. Inshallah. It's a shame, because when I was in Amsterdam, I think it was a year before you opened. I think it was a year before. It was like in the middle of COVID, well, right before COVID, actually.
We opened just in COVID.
And you just had your 2nd year anniversary, correct?
Yes.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I really want to speak about your recent exhibition that just opened. It does feature some photography. But before that, the Isa Perez exhibition that features some stunning work. I think there's a picture of Adriana Lima somewhere.
This one.
What was that like?
Well, Isa is also an interesting story. We had never met before we flew her out here for the show. We were kind of like Instagram friends for about 6-7 years. So we just followed each other. We wouldn't even sometimes speak for a year or something, but just follow each other and supporting each other. And then I've seen her growth like within the past years. And she was also like, when she knew I opened up the gallery, so supportive, like congratulating me, and just like the genuine support from both sides. And then I saw like what she was doing, and I was like, oh, I really love your work. Maybe we should do something together. Well, I said that from the beginning, and it happened like almost 2 years later, 1.5 years later, something like that. And that's also a different process, because you create a whole show through FaceTime and email, and she has like so many works. So going through that was like days and days and days of considering what to show and what not to show, and then printing it. She trusted me with like the framing. So the moment I picked her up at like the central station of Amsterdam and we drove here, I was still building up, but I had already like bought the frames, and like everything was pretty much prepared. And it's also like, as an artist, to give your trust to someone you've actually never met but feel like you know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's that feeling and trust that you mentioned, like when you kind of, you look at an object, you look at an artwork and you're like, I think I want to show that in my gallery.
Yeah, so for her, it was also when she walked in, like she cried because she saw a work like printed so big, especially that Adriana Lima is really big. But like tears of joy, you know, that's amazing to see. And then we did like the build up and opening, and she did like a portrait series the whole weekend of visitors, so that was also pretty cool. Yeah, now she's back in Miami, so it was also my first time, aside from my uncle who lives in Kurdistan, but that was like, I don't know, he was just like, I trust you, you do whatever you want.
Yeah.
You know? It's different.
I was actually going to ask you about your debut show. The debut show for Hama was the show that showed your uncle's work.
Mm-hmm.
How was putting on that show as someone who is connected to the artists, and it being a debut show, the emotions, I'm assuming it must have been super emotional. What was that process like from start to finish?
What was it like? It was emotional because I was like, my family was so proud, but it was also, they still had to see what I was up to, you know? So there's also like this pressure of put your money where your mouth is, you know? And
show up.
Yeah, so for me, it was also kind of scary, but in a good way, like good pressure. It wasn't negative. And Hoshar was very, very hands-on because he also had like so many experiences with galleries. He just gave me like tips like on like the do's and don'ts. But also with that, it's tricky because you want to listen to, in this case, your uncle, but you also want to do like your own thing. And like that family dynamic is also, a bit difficult. But I think in the beginning, he was like, really, you have to do this, you have to do this. And then when the exhibition was on and he saw it, and he was proud, and I sold like quite some works of them. And then he was like, you know what you're doing. You don't need to ask me anymore.
The seal of approval.
Yeah. That stamp of approval was amazing. So after that, it went smoothly. But in the beginning, I can imagine, like, he's older than me. Like, I grew up on like his advice, and now I'm following kind of his directions in a way. Yeah, I think it was also maybe protection, like for me to not fail in that sense. But now they're basically just like, we trust you and go ahead.
That's incredible. Do you are there any Kurdish artists or photographers that you're kind of looking to feature in the future, or what? Who are you looking at right now and thinking, I wanna have this in my gallery, if you can say?
There's so many great artists, but we've grown like quite fast within the past years, and we now have 9 artists that we represent, and that's like quite a lot. So I'm really content where we are now. I don't think I can like handle more, you know, just in time wise, and also in exhibition planning wise, to give everyone equal amount of time. And I think we have a nice balance of different disciplines. I don't know yet, and it's also tricky to name names.
Of course. I just want to quickly touch upon this exhibition you have that opened. That is a mix of photography and also, is it print or is it?
It's print. It's drawing
print,
with text.
Correct? Yeah. How was that bringing those two artists together?
Well,
the balance of photography and print, 2 different media. Well, not so different, but 2 different mediums.
Yeah, very different. Well, I had to convince both artists to even do a duo exhibition, because it's like quite it makes sense once you see it, but it takes some time. Just with that, like trying something new. first year when we did Miriam's exhibition, that was the only exhibition with photography. So a lot of visitors asked for more photography. So, and I didn't expect that because down the street we also have a gallery that does photography only. And there's a lot of photography in Amsterdam. So I thought,
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so people were like, oh, why did you only do one photography exhibition? And some people were like almost offended that it was so many paintings. And I said, okay, bet in the new year we're going to do more photography. So that's how he said, it was in the plans for sure. And Melissa Schreek, who is now on view, was also one of those artists that I met. She came here. Visited the gallery. We took some time, like maybe, I don't know how long to be honest, maybe a year to get to know each other, a bit shorter than a year, something like that. And people are really responding very well to photography and also to it's not graphic design. I call it drawing with text because it's very it's in Dutch, so it's like Dutch drawing with text. It's like easy going. The prints are not like that expensive. They start at €200, which you can, if most people can save for. But it's also like a funny part in it. The exhibition is called Beautiful Lousy Day. Like it's a bit wordplay.
It's beautiful work, and I encourage everyone who is kind of hearing of Hama for the first time or isn't following on Instagram to actually go and have a look. Incredible images, and there is so much life in the pictures that are shown on Instagram, and the amount of love that's coming out of just those images is incredible. We have around 10 minutes, under 10 minutes, and I think we do have one question from Charlotte Cotton, who is actually the artistic director of Tasweer. She says, hi, thank you for this great conversation and for your openness. I have a question for you. What in the art ecosystem of Amsterdam do you think has helped you to keep going and clearly make a real success of your gallery and program? I'm thinking about things like gallery opening nights or local media or art schools, affordable rent. Just what is specific to Amsterdam that allows the possibility to grow a gallery? Charlotte always has the best question.
Wow. Affordable rent? I don't think so.
I think Amsterdam is super expensive, isn't it? Like one of the most expensive European cities, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, it's not as bad as London, I think, or Paris, but it's really bad. Especially like rent is really a thing. Like most costs go to that. But I think the landscape in Amsterdam is quite mixed. There's a lot of programming outside of museums and galleries, a lot of events, a lot of galleries that also host events, also outside of the gallery. I think there are art schools here. It's a very bubbly cultural city. I think.
So would you say it's a combination of all of those things that lead to kind of this? Because I remember kind of after I went to Amsterdam, I kind of became super fascinated with the Stedelijk and the programming they did, and also there was like the Tropen Museum and kind of seeing the way they engage with audiences, even just using like Instagram, is super interesting. And then the art programs they do for younger kids, I think the Stedelijk is called Link Openers. I think that's what it's called.
Like eye openers.
Exactly, to really invite these young people into the space, because unfortunately a lot of museum spaces still feel super elitist and quite scary to enter for people who think that they might not know enough to enter a space.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say also to people, you can always bring your kids, like also to galleries. I mean, you have to watch out that they don't break anything, but most of the time it's not the case, you know? And a lot of kids like will behave. And I always say like, because I was in these spaces at such a young age, I think if I didn't have those experiences, the chances were very small that I would sit here in my gallery, you know?
Yeah,
And
and you wouldn't say that you'd want to be the director of the Stedelijk.
right? Yeah. I mean, who says that?
I mean, I said that I wanted to be an archaeologist when I was a kid, and my teachers gave me the weirdest look. They're like, why do you even know what that is?
Oh, man. Yeah. Yeah. I think, and also the program for children is very nice indeed here. I used to do education at Stedelijk for children programs.
Oh,
especially.
incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
And what was that like, actually? Like, I think, what was it like trying to bring kids into a space? And it feels safe and fun.
Yeah, I think it all depends on the people that you work with. Like, you really have, like, children are definitely, obviously, a different group. You can't just put them somewhere and say, okay, you're gonna get like some art history lesson. You have to make it fun. It's like, especially like engaging, like more workshop type thing that they can do something or draw something or walk up to an exhibition space and sit in front of a painting with some papers and say, okay, make your own interpretation of this, or yeah, just easy going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking of Charlotte's question, and one question I want to kind of prompt and ask the people that we're speaking to over this week is thinking of Tasweer and kind of creating this ecosystem for photographers. What advice would you give as a woman of color who has managed to open a gallery and create such an inviting and accessible environment? What advice would you give to, I guess, Tasweer as a festival, as an organization, and to photographers in the country and in the region?
Mm-hmm. I don't think you guys need my advice, to be honest. You're doing such amazing work, and also like you finding me, for me, was like crazy when I got the request. At first, I thought it was like in my spam, because I was like, in no way, someone's so far away, which is, you're not like crazy far, but
this was like Tasweer giving me free reign to like try and find people to interview, and I was like, okay, here's a list, you know.
But that's like, that was even crazy to me. I was like, really? Or like, is it really like growing in that way? So that's
what you're doing is incredible. Like the fact that you've managed to create a space that is accessibility is super important in cultural spaces, and I feel like you're doing that really, really well.
Thank you so much.
And so kudos to
you guys as well.
Honestly incredible.
You guys as well, really. Because I see that my sister is in this, one of the viewers, one of the attendees. And for her to be here for 1 hour, and she was so proud. Like, also, we don't even speak Arabic because we speak Kurdish. But I know, like, she felt like the connection. Even my little brother was like, whoa, that's a big win, you know? Because
oh my gosh, we actually have pictures of them, don't we? Let me see if I can skip.
Yeah.
Sorry, I've taken control of the presentation.
That's one. And my brother sometimes does the guest list, so he's at the entrance to welcome guests.
So it really
that's what he was doing.
Yeah.
And for advice for artists or photographers, I would say like really like a good website, like an easygoing good website, good presentation online, like use your like Instagram, and it's really the way you treat yourself. It's with anything probably in life, is the way other people will treat you. So if you take yourself seriously, people will also do that. Like sometimes I see artists and they want to show their work, and I'm like, oh, what is your website? And the website is not working, you know, or is half working. Like, you can't have that. That should be the main investment. Or it's like, oh, I haven't used my Instagram in 2 years. Then what am I looking at? What is your process in the past 2 years? So I think that, I also get like it's quite toxic, all this online stuff and keeping up with it and everyone's opinions. And so yeah, you need it, but you do need it.
Like love-hate relationship, like you said.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've got like 2 more minutes, I see. So if any more questions, please get them in really quickly. I have a question for you, one last question. Where do you see Hama in, I know Elizabeth hates the question, like 5-10 years?
5-10 years. I hope if it's growing the way it is, if it keeps like, we still need some growth. It's we're not there yet, to say that, but it's really going very good. But I think if it's growing and can stand on its own, I'm happy with that. Like and I'm also looking into maybe creating a foundation or like expanding like the artist in residence program or other programs like maybe education. Yeah, I think that like just growing here. And I'm also hoping to do more in Kurdistan or more abroad. I'm also looking into hopefully a new small launch in somewhere in Spain because I see like quite a market there for what we do. But yeah, it's all like in research phases right now because it's been like, because people often ask me like, are you going to expand? I'm like, I can't breathe, you know, I don't have time yet.
It's only been 2 years.
If this is steady here, and I'm obviously always thinking in like new things, but also want to take my time because before you know it, it becomes your whole life, you know? Yeah.
I mean, Hama's your baby.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Nina, I think that's all we've got time for this evening.
That went very fast. I was like, what am I going to talk about in a whole hour?
For a whole hour. And we had technical difficulties as well. So this is good.
Thank you for making it so easy.
Thank you for being such a great guest and being honest and you know, as Charlotte says, for being open. It's been so great to hear from you, and I'm looking forward to seeing what you do in the future, and inshallah when I'm in Amsterdam, come down and visit Hama. I encourage you all to follow Hama Gallery on Instagram. Check them out. I know a whole bunch of artists because of you. So I thank you for that. And thank you for creating a space that is just so accessible and safe.
Thank you.
I want to just remind our audience that Tasweer is still running till the 20th of May. So if you haven't had a chance to check out any of the exhibitions and you're not there, please do. Tomorrow I'll be back, same time, for a fresh conversation with the photography oracle that is Suraya Shaheen. So please do join us tomorrow. Nina, thank you once again.
Thank you.
Suraya's in the chat. Suraya will be joining me tomorrow. So thank you so much. Nina, let's stay in touch, and inshallah we can see you out here in Doha very soon.
Keep in touch. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.